Hey guys, hey, Jason Morris here. Can everybody hear me okay? It's 4 o'clock, guys. Guys, how about let's see, we got people logging on right now. We got a lot of people logging on. Hey, thank you guys for being here. This should be what we're planning to do is give you guys some tips to start as a new agent and give you the roadmap to be successful in this short webinar. So, does that sound good to you guys? And then we got some time at the end. I'll do some question and answer with you and help you answer any questions that you have um, as far as being a new agent and getting started as a new agent. Does that sound good for you guys? Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. So we'll go ahead and get started here. So 5 tips for new real estate agents, or roadmap for new agents to get started. So guys, I'm going to give my quick story here for you guys that don't know me here. So I've been in the real estate business. This is actually my 15th year being a licensed real estate agent. I am from a little town called Mannings, well, actually Alcaloo, South Carolina, but nobody knows where that is. Alcaloo, we had a gas station, and that's it. So the we had a gas station. I didn't really know that pizza delivered until I went to college. And I graduated high school in 1999. I ended up going to Winthrop University, which is near Charlotte, North Carolina. And when I got there, Charlotte was big. I wasn't used to all that. I remember the first time I went to Starbucks, I literally didn't know how to order. I didn't know that there were so many different options with coffee. So, so I am from, like, talking about being from a small town. I'm from as small as you can get. Well, when I first I was approaching the end of my college time, and I was kind of thinking about, hey, what do I want to do? Because at the time I was working at Sears. Sears, I was selling lawnmowers and treadmills and stuff, and I was actually doing pretty well part time. I'd won some sales awards and stuff like that, so I knew that I had a certain basic level of sales skills, or at least people liked me and at least somewhat believed what I was telling them about their treadmill or lawnmower. So I ended up coming to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, just a random trip. I meet this lady, and she tells me that she's a real estate agent down here. And I said, "Well, that sounds pretty cool. It sounds pretty exciting. What do you do?" And she goes, "Well, I work for this company. We sell oceanfront." And she goes, "Basically, I hang it out at the beach all day, and people come in and they want me to show them some condos, and I go unlock a few doors, and then every time I sell one, I make $6,000 to $8,000." I said, "Well, how many do you sell?" And she goes, "I sell a few a month." And for me, I was part time working at Sears, broke college kid. My friends were graduating college, being lucky if they were getting starting salaries above $30,000. So she's telling me $6,000 to $8,000 per sale, and she's doing multiple sales a month. I'm going, man, sign me up, right? So anyway, so I finished college. I During the time I was in college, I went and got my real estate license and stuff. I didn't put it active with anybody. And as soon as I finished, I called this lady up and said, "Hey, can you set me up an interview?" And long story short, I finished my last college class on a Tuesday, and by Thursday the same week, I was living in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. So I literally moved about 2.5 hours from where I was from, and about 4 hours away from the college I went to, from anybody that I knew. I knew nobody in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I didn't even know my next door neighbor. The way I found an apartment was going to Winthrop University. I went in and get to give my 30-day notice, and they said, "Where are you moving to?" And I said, "Well, I'm moving to Myrtle Beach." And she goes, "We have apartments in Myrtle Beach." I said, "No kidding. What do they look like?" She goes, "They look exactly like the one that you're living in now." And I signed a lease like sight unseen. Um, so um, so I didn't even know really the area I was going to be living in, let alone anybody there. But I didn't care. Hey, I was going to go work for this company and make $6,000 to $8,000 a unit and sell 2 or 3 condos a month. So I get down here. I realize very quickly that that wasn't exactly how it was. Have you guys being new in the real estate business, have you had that experience where you got in and it turns out it wasn't exactly how you thought it was going to be? Raise your hand if you've had that experience already. Well, I took in realized that what they really done was they did new resort sales. And most of these pre-construction resorts, it was going to take 18 to 24 months to get it built, meaning it was going to take 18 to 24 months for me to get paid. And also anything else that was going on, they basically, it just wasn't as easy as what she said. So I ended up going to work at a general brokerage company, and where I ended up, I about 3 months in, I said, this isn't where I want to be here. So I switched to a larger brokerage, where I eventually had a small office. Basically what they did was they sat in the office, and people somehow or another found the number of the company and they called in. Everybody did floor duty, and they literally fought over it. It was wild. I'd never seen people like, they were literally having verbal arguments in the office about who was going to answer the phones. So I said, you know what, this is not what I had in mind. Second time, not what I thought it was going to be, right? Um, so I said, well, you know what, I'm going to go to another company. I went to a large company that offered a lot of training. And I went there, and still, the agents that I would talk to in the office, they did a lot of mail, spent a ton of money on advertising, and they made a lot of money. I mean, a lot of them were driving nice cars, right? Um, and but still, I was a broke college kid. I mean, I literally remember writing checks. I was working at a place called the Carolina Opry, and I'd work at the Carolina Opry from 4 to midnight. Then I would basically come home, eat, get to bed about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and I'd be at the real estate office by like 8:30, 9 o'clock, trying to figure out how to sell a house. And but I was a broke college kid. I remember getting paid for my job on a Friday, but my light bill was due on a Thursday, and I was writing a check hoping that, somehow or another the check didn't clear my bank before my paycheck come in and cleared my bank. Um, what ended up happening was, I started looking. I realized that I needed somebody to show me what to do, and I went and I had to find a mentor, and that's what I did. My very first mentor. I took it, and I kept hearing this guy in the back of the office every meeting. He was literally standing up and said, talking about all the listings he was getting. And I mean, it was just one after another. The guy was listing 4, 5, 6 properties a week. He was listing more by himself than the rest of the office was listing combined. So I said, you know what? I got to know what this guy's doing. So I followed him out of the office meeting and said, hey, man, can you show me? And fortunately, he was kind enough to show me, and I became friends with him. And 15 years later, I'm still friends with him. But what I learned was, even doing his method, it still took me a little bit of time. So what ends up happening after that is, once I learned how to generate my own business, and you have to learn how to generate your own business. Once I learned how to generate my own business, I went from being a brand new agent to literally building a team, being one of the top 50 in North America for 3 years in a row. My team being one of the top 50 in North America 3 years in a row. Anyway, 15 years later, here we are today. I still have a team. My team operates very, very much differently. However, the purpose of this is I want to take some of that experience I had and help you guys navigate starting your career in the real estate industry. So guys, let's get started. Let me tell you, let me start giving you the blueprint here. So guys, I have this belief. I believe we need to watch the compass, not the clock. Have you guys ever heard this saying? Watch the compass, not the clock. Sometimes we want everything now, right? And we hear these crazy things about, it takes you 6 months to get started. It takes you this to get started. It takes you that. I believe that if we can get a plan together and we can head in the right direction, sometimes we might not get there as quick as we want to, right? Sometimes there's a little traffic backup. Sometimes there's unexpected things along the way. But if we've got somebody showing us what direction we're going in, and we got somebody giving us the roadmap, even if we don't get there in the time that we planned and we hoped, we could get there a lot quicker than going by ourselves, right? We can speed up the pace at which we're traveling. So guys, The number one thing that we got to do as a brand new agent is we got to get the basic stuff out of the way as soon as possible. Got to get it out of the way as soon as possible. Guys, in most states, I'm going to tell you, most states, the state of South Carolina, we only have about 4 contracts we use all the time. We have a buyer representation agreement or buyer agency agreement, right? States how we're going to get paid. We have a buyer contract to buy a property. We have a listing contract, a property disclosure, and guys, that's the main 4 things we use. Every state is about that same way. There's only going to be 3 or 4 forms, 3 or 4 fill-in-the-blank contracts that you guys are going to use. I know that depending on the office you're at, there might be 100 of them in your Zip Forms account or whatever program you guys are using. However, we need to get out of the way learning how to use the basic ones as quick as possible. We need to get out of the way learning getting our business cards ordered. Guys, order 500, get them from Vistaprint, get them today, and get the basic information on them, right? We're going to change them in 6 months anyway. We're probably going to change them in 3 months anyway, right? They don't have to be perfect. I see agents that are spending tremendous time with the business cards, tremendous time trying to figure out the right domain name for their email address. Guys, to start out, use the email address you got as long as it's professional, right? I will tell you, I had a new agent that worked for me. This was a few years ago when she first started her. I did have to recommend her to get another email. I said, hey, just use whichever one whichever one you use right now. Just get started. Just get something on the card people can contact you from, right? You can always find something fancy. You can always get something really nice, after you get going. But let's just get something to start, right? We got to get started. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? And then she told me her email address. It was Smokahontas420. And I said, oh yeah, I don't know if we can use this one. This was 10 years ago. Signs, get the basic sign. We don't need anything. We don't need to spend a lot of money. We're just starting out, right? There's a lot of brokerages that they're gonna tell you need these big fancy signs and this stuff that you need. And I'm going to share with you what I'm doing with my team here in just a minute to give you a good example of some of this stuff. So, but we have to go through and we have to get this basic stuff, the basic getting started stuff. Make sure you got an email address that works. Make sure that you got business cards that you can hand people, even if they're white and black. It doesn't matter. It's just a piece of paper with your name, your phone number, and your brokerage information on it. It's all you need to get started. Don't get bogged down in the process, guys. Guys, number two, getting started, I feel like we need some sort of lead service, right? We need something. Now, we're going to talk about this in just a second, but we need something that's passive leads, something that's going to be sending people to you, right? There's a bunch of options out there for this, but we need something that's going to send us passive leads while we start working our sphere of influence, while we start learning how to prospect, while we start learning how to develop business on our own. We need something to help us get started. Right? A lot of agents get started and they think, oh, wait, I'm going to wait till later to look at lead sources, or they get hung up on a magic bullet type lead source, right? Guys, you need something that's going to send you leads. It's going to send you now business, and it's going to send you those while you're working on getting and starting to generate and learning how to generate your own business. Now, this plan here in just a second, guys, my team, the people that are working directly with me, they're going on appointments in the first 30 to 45 days, right? After startup, after everything, they're going on appointments. Some of them are going on appointments the second week. But you need to have a lead source that gets you going. It's providing you leads while you're learning how to do everything else. Guys, if you do this, this is going to take a lot of the pressure off, and you're learning the whole way, right? Number 3, we cannot delay starting to prospect. We cannot delay starting to prospect. Okay, now when I say prospect, I'm not talking about getting a list of your local neighborhood that's 10,000 numbers to start with, guys. That is a bad use of time, right? But we got to start getting on the phone. We got to start calling. We have to start looking for sale by owners. We have to start looking for people that want to sell their house, right? We got to start databasing our for rent by owners. Right? If you're not calling and databasing for rent by owners and following up with them, then guys, you are missing out on a tremendous, tremendous lead source. But we have to start prospecting. We need to start getting on the phone and getting comfortable with the phone. Guys, the best thing that you can do for yourself, your family, and your bank account is get really good on the phone. So how do you get really good on the phone? Well, number one thing we need is a script. Guys, the magic in the script, I hear a lot of agents, especially new agents, they want to fight the system. They've done some sales before. They're a nice person. They watch Wolf of Wall Street, 15 times. They think they know what to say. Guys, the thing about it is that we don't know what to say. And sometimes the anxiety of getting on the phone and starting this process, the biggest thing that causes anxiety, that causes the fear, that causes you to delay getting started is you don't have a script. You don't know what to say. Or the scripts that you do use are hard, right? It needs to be natural. It needs to be easy. But you got to get a script and you got to start role playing, right? If you get a pre-listing package together, something that tells about your service, your company probably has something that they use, depending on what franchise, where you're at, they may have something that you need. But you need to also get a listing presentation together, right? But we got to start prospecting as quickly as possible. We got to start getting on the phone, even if you're just working buyer leads, right? Even if you're just working buyer leads, you need to start getting in the practice of calling them. A lot of us in the real estate business, we have fancy CRMs, fancy websites and stuff that does a lot of follow-up work for you. But guys, it still doesn't replace somebody hearing your voice on the phone and you actually calling them, right? But we have to start prospecting as quickly as possible. So number four. Now, I talked about this stuff in number 3. We got to get a script. We got to get a pre-listing package, and we got to get a listing presentation. Number 4 is we need to start role playing. We need to start role playing. We need to start using our scripts. We need to start actually, we need to actually have a notepad with us when we're making calls. In that notepad, one of the main reasons is to have that. Number 1 is to write stuff down, but number 2 is to write down all the objections you get. We have to start practicing. Guys, how many of you guys saw Tiger Woods win the Masters 2 weeks ago? Right? The reason why Tiger Woods performed well at the Masters, he performed well in the game, is because he practiced those same scenarios, those same shots, those same putting difficulties and everything. He'd practiced those things on his home course. He'd practiced them at other golf courses thousands of times. Right? We have to role play. We have to practice. Guys, the only way to get really good on the phone, the only way to get really good at dealing with your buyers, to get really good at dealing with your sellers, is to have that system and practice that system over and over again. Right? We cannot practice enough. How many of you guys are role playing? Let me know in the comments. Are you role playing right now? Yes or no? Guys, we cannot start role playing quick enough. So number five thing that I can recommend you guys doing in this blueprint here, we're going to go back through these real quick, but we need to make sure that starting out we're buying as little as possible. Use what your broker offers. I know that there's a lot of times that especially when we get in the first get in the business, we are hammered with new products, new services, have to have type items. The thing is, a lot of that stuff, a lot of that stuff you don't need. They're a shiny toy. They're a shiny object, it's like us here living in Myrtle Beach. It's like having a 4-wheel drive in a truck when you don't have any mountains or anything. You're just driving it on the highway. That's what a lot of these toys are like. A lot of your brokers are offering stuff that you can start with. You can always upgrade as you have money coming in. Once you get a few closings under your belt, you can always upgrade what you have. So let's start over here real quick. Number one, we need to get the basic stuff out of the way. We got to get our business cards. We got to get our email address. We got to get our signs. We got to get everything we need and we got to do it like as quickly as possible. If you're brand new, like if you just got your license and you can get all this stuff out of the way, your business cards ordered and everything within the first day, the first few hours, and then you can get in a brokerage class where you're learning your contracts within that first 2 or 3 days, guys, it's going to then you can actually get to work, right? You get to work after that. Number 2, we need some sort of lead source coming in. We need some sort of passive lead source, somebody that's just sending us leads that we can start working, that we can start practicing on, that we can start getting now business while we're learning how to prospect and learning how to cost effectively generate our own leads, right? This way we're not having to be a slave of things like Zillow, not having to be a slave of Realtor.com, right? Number 3, we got to start prospecting as quickly as possible. We have to start calling our sphere of influence. We have to start calling for sale by owners. We have to start going out and looking for business as soon as possible. Number 4, we got to start role playing. All these things that we talked about, getting your scripts, getting your dialogues, getting your listing presentations, getting all that in order. We have to start role playing. Right? We have to start practicing those items, because if we do not practice them, then guys, we're never going to get good at them, right? It's like, just like we talked about Tiger Woods. The reason he won the Masters is not because he's lucky, not because he's naturally gifted, which there is some natural gift and talent to what he's doing, but it's because he's trained. He's trained and he's practiced for years, right? Number 5, we got to watch our budget. We got to watch what we're spending money on and make sure we're not spending money on things that don't make sense. So guys, I want to give you guys an example of the way my team operates and kind of show you. So number one, when an agent decides they're going to come over, decides they're going to work with us, and we have agents all over the country now, number one thing is we get them onboarded as quickly as possible. We get them the onboarding typically is done by the company I work for, but we get them started. We get them acclimated to the systems. We use SkySlope for contracts. We get them their SkySlope passwords, so they can attend any company training, any company events, and we make sure that they know, basically they know where everything is, right? Number 2, we want to get the new agent contracts and stuff set up as quickly as possible. That way you're sitting in that new agent class, you're watching it online, you're learning how to do the contracts, you're learning how to fill them out, and also our company offers local mentorships, so we get you with a local mentor. So those small things that, sometimes I'm in the state of South Carolina, sometimes I don't know what page 2, section number 3 says on your contract. I can tell you how to get business, but sometimes I don't know what your contract says. We do get you assigned to a local mentor that can answer those local questions, those state-specific and local market questions. But number three, all the agents that work with me, I get them on board. We've got about 20 companies that we work with right now that are on a referral basis. However, I want to get them those passive leads. And guys, these leads only cost money if you actually sell something, right? So they're basically free leads until you sell something. But I want to get the agents working with me up and going as quickly as possible, and I want to get them going. I want to get people calling them. I want to get them calling people. I want to get them talking to clients. I want to get them unlocking doors and showing houses, right? The quickest way to learn is to get immersed in the business and actually start doing the business. Right? Number 4 would get you set up with the company provided tools, CRM, etc., things like that. Number 5, and now all this happens within the first 7 days, right? Number 5, I want to get scripts, presentations. I have a full training program, plus I make myself available one-on-one to the people on my team to make sure that their presentation, that they understand what goes into the presentation, and I make sure they have somebody paired up with the practice scripts to role play and things like that, So number 6, once we get that going, once we get them comfortable with the scripts, which is usually a day or so, it's a day of practicing, once we get them their pre-listing package set up, the presentation and all that stuff on board, we want to introduce them to low-cost, no-cost lead sources, right? And I even talk about this a lot in my training, where can we get leads that don't cost us money? But we want to get them introduced to those because I want to get the agents working with me out there prospecting as quickly as possible, right? And while they're out there prospecting, I want to train them on developing their sphere of influence. Guys, do you guys have a sphere of influence now? Raise your hand. Do you know how to start developing that sphere of influence so that your friends, family members, people you know can start sending you business? Guys, I think there's a special way that you have to do this. And I think there's a special way that you can do a lot of it through social media, through touches through social media to make sure that they know, hey, look, Jason Morris, I'm in the real estate business. And number 8, we have daily accountability because, not only do you, not only do you need, to know the roadmap, sometimes you need somebody to help you stay on the road, right? And one thing I see happening in the real estate business is we see a lot of offices, we see a lot of things going on, but then what happens is we don't, they show us the path, but then they don't help us keep on the path, right? And being a new agent, I know it's easy to get distracted. I've been there. I've been there for sure. So guys, we have opportunities across the country. If you are looking, if you're not getting offered these things at your office and you do want to discuss them, but guys, I told you I'd keep this as close to 30 minutes as possible for you, but I want to give you guys some time for some question and answers. What things are you running into? What issues are you having at your getting started? What things do you have that you're struggling with a little bit? Starting, how do you start part-time? Do we hire part-time agents? We do. To start part-time, you know what we need to, first thing we need to do, let me, we need to help you build a schedule. One of the hardest things that I see agents do is they take and they say, hey, I'm going to work in the real estate business, but they never set up time to actually work in the real estate business, right? They have a full-time job, they have a family, they have things going on. Real estate for a lot of agents, especially starting out, as a dream. Now, guys, I believe that we can get started. I believe that you can start part-time in an hour a day. I believe that you can do that. There's not a lot of people that do, but I believe that you can do that. I believe with the right system, right tools, the right help, you can start in an hour a day. But we need to build a schedule. And if you're part-time, first thing we need to do is what's your work schedule, right? We need to write down what our work schedule is, right? Because that's what's paying our bills today. Number two, family time. Family time. Actually, we need to do business commitments. So we need to add in, we need to write down our work schedule, write down what business commitments we have, continuing education, training classes, things like that, right? Because those things aren't going to change for us. Number 3, we need to make sure we add in family time. I'll tell you one thing I've learned in the real estate business is, and being divorced myself, I can tell you this from experience. When your business life and your personal life start to collide, they start butting heads, only one of those things are going to survive, right? So you got to make sure that you plan for those date nights. You got to make sure you plan to go to your kids' soccer games, to go to your kids' football games, to go to your daughter's ballet, things like that, right? We got to do family time. Okay, number 4 is prospecting. When are we going to prospect? And guys, starting out, if you can do an hour a day, that's fantastic. If you can't do but 30 minutes, 3 days a week, and then 2 hours on Saturday, guys, we start where we start, right? And if you need help with this, let me know. I'll help you get started. And then number 5, we got everything else. Now, I tell people, if you're starting part-time and if your goal is to sell an extra house to have some extra income, do 1 a quarter, something like that, 4 or 5 houses a year, guys, that's okay. Your goal is your goal. What you want to sell is what you want to sell. Not all of us want to go out and sell 100 houses a year, and it's okay, right? You can do 1, 2 houses a quarter, make a great secondary income, and have a great experience in the real estate business. You just have to plan to have it. That's it. You just have to plan to have it, guys. But we have to have a plan, and we have to know if we have that limited amount of time to work, we have to know what are we going to do when it's time to work, guys. And that's one thing I help my team with, and I help them get started with. So guys, what are our free lead sources? What are our free lead sources? Guys, leads are everywhere. We got to condition ourselves to look for them. Not enough people. I'll tell you this: there isn't near as many people calling Craigslist as what you think there is. There's not near as many people going through your Facebook news feeds, Facebook groups. Right there, nobody. I guarantee nobody in your market is calling eviction filings. Guys, I'll tell you that's one of the biggest secrets I think in the real estate business is eviction filings. What they are is where the landlords file an eviction on a tenant. Usually by that time they are the definition of tired landlord. I got a couple of these going on myself right now, and believe me, I just want to be done. I'm at the point I just want to be done. Now the difference is I'm a professional landlord, and I get it. Hey, we're going to kick them out, and we'll get somebody else in there as quick as possible, or we'll get it resolved, right? But a lot of people aren't like that. A lot of people have one rental unit, and they're struggling with that one. But Public Index has a tremendous amount of free leads, abandoned houses, driving around looking for sale by owners. All that stuff is free. Um, getting good at Facebook. I just did a Facebook webinar where we went through and talked about lead sources and the different ways you can work Facebook without it costing you money and without you going and spending ads, right? But there's a tremendous amount of leads, Harvey, that are all around us, guys. What other questions do you guys have? So how did the companies work? Well, guys, what we have is over the years I've built relationships with companies that do have access to real estate leads, and what we have is we have arrangements with them where they're willing to send the agents working with us leads, and in return, the agent actually just pays a referral when a deal closes, right? So there's no money exchanged up front. It doesn't cost you anything unless you close business. I mean, that's really it. Which would be your best lead source for your number two? Um, Guys, I really like for sale by owners. I think for sale by owners. I'll tell you this. That was one thing I learned very early on. I wrote a book called How to Be a FSBO Master. Um, but for sale by owners I've always felt like that was probably my number one lead source in prospecting. I do believe that you should work on building a listing heavy business, and that should be your goal because listings are going to give you leverage. You can have 50 listings and all of them get shown today by other agents. You can have 50 qualified buyers and you probably can't show them property this month. Now, I always feel like listings are number one. I like expireds. I like expireds are close number two. Those are low hanging fruit, right? For sale by owners, we know they want to sell their house because they bought a red and white sign and stuck it out in the front yard. Expireds, we know they want to sell their house because they've already been signed up with a real estate agent. I'd say number three. I like focusing and working around people, focusing on lead sources that I believe people are motivated to sell. Right. I like the eviction filings. I've done a tremendous amount of probate. I've worked with a lot of investors. How do I feel about just listed, just sold? You know what? I like just listed, just sold. I wouldn't say that's number one. The thing about just listed, just sold, I think if you're going to make calls to neighborhoods, I think you have to have a strategy to warm up those calls, right? And just listed, just sold, I think are fantastic because you do have something of value to offer the people you're calling. There's a lot of coaches out there and real estate people that literally they're making calls and what they're doing is hey Kat, Jason Morris here. Jason Morris here. I just wanted to give you a call, see if you wanted to sell your house. And that's it, yes or no, right? But I think that we can warm up that call quite a bit if we say something like, hey Kat, this is Jason Morris. Morris, I just wanted to give you a call. There's a house just came on the market down the street from me, and what I was calling for was I was wondering if that house is a 4-bedroom. I was wondering if you knew anybody that maybe had a 3-bedroom they were looking to sell, or if you knew anybody that might be interested in the 4-bedroom. Right? I think if we are able to warm up that call, a little bit, or hey, Kat, it's Jason Morris. We just had a house sell down the street from yours, and I was wondering if you knew anybody else looking to sell in your neighborhood. Right? And they go, oh, really? That one sold? Yeah, it's sold. Yeah, it's sold. I got all the information right here. I'll tell you what, I can email it over to you. And then all of a sudden, you got their email address. You got another way you can add them to your database. You can follow up with them, right? And you know what community that they live in, so you can actually tailor your follow up to that list and however many emails you can somehow or another get for that community through your calls. I like for rent by owners. For rent by owners, I don't think enough people really take those seriously. But I'll give you guys the short version of for rent by owners. So for rent by owners, one of the things that we have to do is chances are most of the country right now the rental market is insane. So more than likely, by the time you actually get them on the phone, they've already rented the house. So we're not 95% of the time we're not going to list it day one. 99% of the time we're not going to list it day one. But that's okay. That's not what we're calling for. We're calling because we want to add another person to our database that we know is an absentee owner. Does that make sense to you guys? Raise your hand if that makes sense. They're an absentee owner. We know it's an investment property. Another thing that we know about for rent by owners is most landlords did not become landlords by 100% their choice. They became landlords because they got stuck becoming a landlord. I guarantee you this. It doesn't matter what they say. They inherited a house. They couldn't sell it. They had to move from their house and they couldn't sell it. They owed too much on their house and they couldn't sell it, right? And then they couldn't afford to let it sit empty. A lot of landlords are landlords because of those sort of situations. Now we know one of two things happen. So let's say they rent their house in April of 2019. We know that the majority of leases are going to be for 12 months. Wouldn't you guys agree with that? Most people are signing a 12-month lease. Okay, and we know that in the next 12 months, if they sign a lease today, in the next 12 months, one of two things are going to happen. Number one, that lease is probably going to come to an end at the end of that 12 months. That's number one. And they may or may not renew that lease. Who knows? The number two thing is we know that there could possibly be a problem with a tenant. I owned a property management company where we managed over 300 properties, and I did that for 5 or 6 years. When I had a larger real estate team that was local, and one of the things I learned was it seemed like maybe it was a beach town, maybe it was maybe it was me, but on a long enough time frame, it was like, hey, at some point you had a problem with your tenant. At some point, okay, and then maybe you didn't evict him, but maybe you're just sick of him, right? Maybe you're sick of the process. And the idea is that you talk to that seller, you send them your pre-listing package, you send them some information about you, your team, and what you do to sell houses. Then you follow up systematically, maybe every 30 days, every 45 days. You stick them on an auto alert from your MLS, so it sends them and you a property when a new one comes on the market in their neighborhood. That way you've got something to call them about. You call them, say, hey, Kat, Jason Morris here. Just wanted to give you a call, man. I know we're talking about your house over there. One just came on the market down the street. I think it's the same floor plan as yours. It's on the market for $275. But you're just calling and touching base with them, right? Now, but you're just calling, touching base with them, and hopefully what you're hoping for, let's say you add 1 to 2 for rent by owners, to your database a month, per day, per month. All right, you're going to add 30 to 45 a month. Okay, so once you get to the end of 6 months, you're going to have around 200 people you're following up with. And these 200 people, you pretty much have a good idea of when the lease ends on their house. How powerful do you think it would be? How excited would you guys be if you knew, not in June, but in July, 30 days from now, that you had a list of 45 or 50 people that were going to have houses that were possibly going to go empty? How exciting would that be? Don't you think out of 50 houses going empty, you could get one to list, right? That you've been following up with the last 12 months. Doesn't that make sense? As that for rent by owner list, is a gold mine. You just have to build it. So Kat asked, where can we find probate and absentee owner information? Now, probate, you can find it at your courthouse. There is not really an accurate list of absentee owners or houses that are empty. However, you can talk to a title company. That's probably the easiest way to get the absentee owner list. And typically, most counties are taxed differently for a second home versus a primary residence, and you can get them to pull a list of those second homeowners. Now, to find contact information for empty houses, probably the best, easiest to use thing that I've seen is RedX's GeoLeads. If you call them, tell them that I sent you, they'll waive the $150 setup fee, but you can actually do one-off number lookups. So absentee owners, vacant houses, the houses with the grass grown up, waist high around them. That's the probably the easiest way to find those numbers. It's cost effective. I think it's only $40 a month. To find probate, I'll tell you the easiest way to find probate and to find contact information is, guys, there's a service called alltheleads.com. They provide you the phone numbers and everything. However, lots of times with probate, you can go down to the courthouse and get you can talk to the probate office, and it's all public information, right? But then you have to go out and figure out how to track down the executor of the estate. Sometimes when you start looking, especially if you're part-time and you have a limited amount of time, you want to make sure that you're maximizing that time. So sometimes, if you only got an hour a day to prospect, you don't want to spend that hour trying to look for phone numbers. So guys, what other questions you guys have? So guys, I appreciate you being on the call with me today. Guys, if you are looking for another opportunity, send me a message through Facebook. Hit me up. Let me know if I can help you. If you have any questions with your real estate business, let me know. I'm happy to help you. Guys, Harvey asked, I'll answer this question. We'll wrap it up. So owners of listings that were vacant and withdrawn 9 or 10 months ago might be a good target as their prudential rental contracts are about to expire. Yes, sir, they are. Properties that are vacant and they were withdrawn properties, fantastic source of business. I didn't mention those earlier. Here we kind of just add them in with the expireds, or I think of them as expireds, but I think withdrawals are a fantastic source of business. If your market has rental leads in MLS, guys, not all markets have them. My market don't have rentals in MLS. Well, we have them, but we have a very limited amount. But if your market has rentals in MLS, those rentals that were actually rented 9, 10 months ago are great lead sources. Those are great ones to start following up with, because we know that if you start calling them at 9 months, we know that more than likely that lease is going to only last 3 or 4 months. So, guys, I appreciate you guys being on the call. I hope that you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll talk to you soon.